My name is Rose Amador LeBeau. I am President and CEO of CTC. Our mission is to help people through employment and education become self-sufficient. We have a day worker center. We have educational programs so people can get their GEDs. We serve a variety of people, people who've just become unemployed, people who have never worked. We work with homeless people. We work with people who have just gotten out of prison and have to re-enter the workforce. So we're full service. I think it's seeing people make the change, become successful, make that transition, and actually having an impact on people's lives, a positive impact. To see these success stories is what it's all about.
OCO, and welcome. This is Native Voice TV. Today I'm your host, Crag Pasqua. Rose has asked me to help her out with the show, and I gladly accepted when she called me, and I know Rose is doing well. She's watching us, and I hope so if there's any problems, anything goes wrong with the show, anything, it's Steve and Rose's fault. Please don't call me. So today, my inaugural hosting session, my guest is Mozahuani Alvarado. And Mozahuani, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Lasso Kamati. I really appreciate being here on this show. I love Native Voices. It's important to the community, and this is just a real honor and a privilege for me.
Thank you. Speaking of the community, you are a resident of San Jose,
yes,
and you are the director of the Mexican Heritage Plaza.
Yeah,
correct?
Yeah. I serve as the executive director of the School of Arts and Culture at the Mexican Heritage Plaza. Yes.
Along with that, you are you're an Aztec dancer with the Calpali
Tonaleque. You almost had it right there. Yeah. Yeah. So Calpuli Tonaleque, Calpuli, and Tonaleque actually means warriors who accompany the sun. Okay. And I've been a traditional Aztec dancer for 16 years.
We've run into each other at the Aztec Festival and the American Indian Heritage Celebration before. But I think one of the things that our listeners don't know that you were also the MC of the Mayor Liccardo's inauguration.
That's true, that's correct.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, it was an amazing experience. I think that for the community, for the Latino community, the Mexica community, and our circles, that it was important, not only for me personally, but for the communities that I represent, the choice that Mayor Liccardo made, and to really kind of buck tradition and to ask somebody that's involved in the community in a different way to do that, to have that honor. So it was the biggest audience I've ever had the honor to speak in front of. There were about 2,500 people there. So when I came out on stage, it was a little, I was a little nervous, but once the lights blind you, nobody's there in the room but you. So it was great. It was a great experience. And we were able to actually have Calpuli Tonaleque also open up the ceremony, which was a great honor.
You had two roles.
Yes, I was the MC. I didn't get to dance that time because I couldn't have both roles. But I think for our community, and in terms of the topics that we discuss here on the show, I think that the mayor selecting Calpuli Tonaleque to open up the show, to really show the native cultures of Mexico and that connection to the native cultures here in the United States, it really said something about him and about his administration and about his support of the multicultural communities and about culture in general. So I appreciated that. I think that it was something that meant a lot to those of us who are working in this way.
I'm glad that you had that opportunity to represent.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I'm grateful to hear that. And your role as the ED at the Mexican Heritage Plaza, could you talk to me a little bit more about that role?
Sure. We opened up 4 years ago. most people know that the Mexican Heritage Plaza was opened in 1999 to much fanfare, an amazing, amazing facility, gardens, classrooms, a beautiful glass-walled pavilion, a theater that you have to come see if you haven't seen it already, 500 plus seats, fully rigged, professionally run, and it has been our honor since 2011, July 5th. We opened up with 21 students. And now, since then, we have actually served 2,200 students with in-depth, high-quality arts education. And we have an average of 60,000 people coming through our doors annually. So you might ask, well, what do we do there? What are the types of things that happen? We have arts education classes that go on. We also have the Multicultural Arts Leadership Institute, which is for people of color who are deeply engaged in the arts. And then also we have the community engagement program, where organizations like San Jose Taiko or Teatro Visión or San Jose Jazz can come and actually activate the space for their purposes and their needs. So that's, in a super nutshell in terms of what we're doing there.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So a large organization like that, you must have a lot of faculty members. Could you talk about your artists?
Sure. We actually have one of our faculty members who also has a role not only as faculty, but he's also a member of Calpulito Naleque, and that's Omicuautli Roberto Romo. He's a member of our visual arts department in terms of faculty. He's also SV Creates laureate. He's an artist laureate. He recently had this award given to him, so we're very excited for him. So we have our focus, while we are at the Mexican Heritage Plaza, we do have a multicultural perspective. So our faculty represent that. We have faculty that teach Brazilian percussion classes, samba dance, Puerto Rican bomba y plena, in addition to what you would think we would offer, like traditional Mexican folkloric dance and also Aztec drum and dance. The visual arts are very important, as I mentioned. So for example, one of our most popular classes is Mesoamerican ceramics. It's just, we have a lot of fun, but we're learning at the same time.
Now these classes you talk about, we talked before the show a little bit about, right now you're in your summer program, your summer camp program.
Correct, yeah.
But I know summer's ending and fall season's coming along and the start of school's coming. Do you have anything for the fall, or could you talk about your fall?
Absolutely. Craig, if you let me, I will book every weekend for you. We have things going on all the time, 7 days a week. In the fall, in the last week of September, we'll start our fall classes. We have classes for all age brackets. So you too can come and learn Aztec dance. Maybe I'll invite you, right? I'll invite you, you can come. We also have Latino Heritage Month activities coming up in partnership with KQED. So we'll have a screening on September 10th. The film is actually called On Two Fronts, Latinos in Vietnam, and this is free and open to the public. So, we can definitely share information with the Native Voices audiences around that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting concept.
So,
could you talk a little bit more about the movie?
About the movie? Sure.
Yeah.
So this is our 5th annual screening in partnership with KQED. When we opened up, KQED reached out to us. They were trying to reach new audiences here in the South Bay. We'd been open maybe a couple weeks and said, hey, we'd like to do a screening with you all. And part of our work with them has been to say, how do we reach new audiences it's easier for us to reach, children and families, right? But in terms of, like, say, for example, this film with Latinos in Vietnam, it's not easy for us to reach audiences that might be interested in this film. So we'll have a free screening in our beautiful theater. We'll have, after we'll have a program with, food and music, and really give the community an opportunity to come. And usually what happens is that people end up having conversations about the content of the film with each other. We'll have a panel discussion and really have an opportunity to learn a little bit more about our history. Yeah.
So you get Vietnamese and Latinos together.
Right, and so KQED is working together with us on this. And again, like I said, while we are the Mexican Heritage Plaza, I always let people know this plaza belongs to all of us. This is a city-owned facility. It's a $35 million investment on behalf of the city and the then redevelopment agency that was then open. So it's our job, as far as the School of Arts and Culture is concerned, to steward the space, so to speak, but it's our job to create community. And our community here in San Jose is diverse. Therefore, our audiences at the school should be diverse.
Here in the San Jose area, I know there's a lot of overlap of cultures from Native and the Mexican culture. And I was wondering, you shared with me your Mexican, and I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about Native Americans and Mexicans and Mexicans
Sure.
and how they all fit together.
Sure, and of course, I'm not a professor in while I did major in Chicano studies, I'm not a professor in Native studies or that kind of thing. So these are things that I've come to understand. And then there's other things that, for example, I will reference some information from the last census that actually showed that about 400,000, it was approximately 400,000 Mexicans said that they were Mexica. And what we're doing, and I was one, my family, we were part of that. That's what when we noted on the census, who are you? And you have all these boxes that you're supposed to check off, and there isn't a box for you. And so what we're doing as Mexicas is we're saying, we are Mexicans, yes, but we have native descent. So that's the piece where there is a nuance, a significant nuance within our culture, is that for us, we're part of this movement to say that our native roots are of the most importance. Culturally speaking, for us to pretend like we don't have native roots, that only the Spanish culture matters, that is not who we are. That's not the whole of our culture. Naturally, we are a people who were conquered by the Spaniards, but that, as of in terms of our community locally here, you have this tradition that's why Aztec dance is so connected to this. In the 70s, Aztec dance in California, as a result of some immigrants into the country who came with that tradition, and from there on, you've seen this flowering. This is starting in the 70s, right? And this resurgence of pride, native pride, of our native roots. So it's not the same. It's not a cut and paste piece like the U.S. version, so to speak, of how it works here in the United States. In terms of being native, it means something very specific and very different from what it means for us. But I think that it's a beautiful thing within our community to say, for example, I'm picking up a cup of coffee and I'm wearing my huipil, I'm wearing my traditional clothing. I always wear something traditional every day. And this young woman told me the other day, wow, I really like your blouse, and I see that you're wearing huaraches, our traditional sandals. She said, my mom wouldn't let me buy those things. And I said, wow, that's amazing. In 2015, our culture is something to be proud of, and our native roots, that's where our identity and our resiliency come from. So anyways, I may have gone off on a tangent, but that's my opinion.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
And I know you've worked outside of the Mexican Heritage Plaza,
Sure.
and you're very involved with the community.
Yeah.
Could you tell me what you're up to today?
Sure. Let's see, in terms of what am I up to?
Outside them.
Sure. I'm also the chair of the board of ACE Charter Schools.
Okay.
And so I've got a board that I work with. This is a volunteer role, and we've been growing quite a bit. We're about to open our 5th school, so I'm very proud of the work of the ACE faculty and staff. We started out with 1 school and part of the small school movement, and in partnership with PACT, People Acting in Community Together. So we just had our very first ever ACE Summit with our entire faculty, staff, board. We had it at Our Lady of Guadalupe, and we had Council Member Carrasco speak, and we also had Father John Pedigo speak. I gave a few words of encouragement and direction, so to speak, also to our staff, and it's just amazing. So that's, for me, education is part of what transformed our family, my family, and so that's part of my volunteer work. And then, of course, Calpuli Tonaleque is another aspect of my world that's very important, the traditional Aztec dance group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things you're doing, you shared with me, is you're having a sunrise ceremony on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And could
yes.
you talk a little bit about that?
Yes.
And let our listeners.
Absolutely. Thank you. No, thank you for bringing that up, because that's something that we're really excited to have happen. This will be our now 3rd annual sunrise. Might be our 4th, I have to check.
Okay.
But here's the thing. So we are in solidarity with the International Treaty Council. So before it was a personal thing at first. I was pregnant the year that, this is a couple years ago, I was pregnant, I was tired. I said, it's gonna be so hard for me to get my whole family and my other kids up to Alcatraz. There's gotta be other people like me.
For the sunrise ceremony.
Right,
there.
for the sunrise ceremony. And I have the great privilege and honor to, be a part of the School of Arts and Culture. So I kind of checked around with a few people, checked with Milal Pili Gonzalez from Calpuli Tonaleque, our founder and director of that group, and said, hey, what do you think about this? What if we had something here in the South Bay? There's probably families that find it a hardship to go up to Alcatraz. Maybe there's folks who are, in wheelchairs, and that's kind of a hard physical, like how do I get there type of thing. So far as the School of Arts and Culture, I checked in with our board and staff and said, hey, what if we had something in solidarity, right? The School of Arts and Culture is always in solidarity with all Indigenous struggles and people. And for us, that's something that we're straightforward about. And we have the space, we have the relationships with Calpuli Tonaleque and with other organizations to say, why don't we put this together? So we will, on November 26th, gather before sunrise, and everyone's invited, the public is invited, and to come and to celebrate along with ACOMA. African Arts has always been there from the beginning. And also the local movement for Free Leonard Peltier has also been a part of that as well from the beginning. Also New Fire has been a part of this. So every year we're looking to bring in more and more supporters. It's free and open to the public, and it's a celebration of our Indigenous cultures, and it is an act of resistance also. There are different narratives for Thanksgiving, as you're well aware. And for some people in our community, we choose to not celebrate the narrative of Thanksgiving that's sort of the mainstream narrative. We're not against Thanksgiving. This is a free country, like people like to say. That's fine. However, we recognize as the School of Arts and Culture that there are many in our community that want to celebrate Indigenous culture and resistance, and we have the ability to do that. So that's what drives us, and that's what our motivation is, that the school is also responding to a need of the community. While it was sort of a personal thing at first, as I test out the idea with different members of the community, turns out that this was a need. We do want to celebrate, and the International Treaty Council said, hey, this is a great idea, we give you our blessing.
So the International Treaty Council was, I guess, lack of a better word, sanctioning the sunrise
yes
ceremony
and no.
at Alcatraz?
Yes.
And you had to ask for their permission?
It wasn't about asking for permission so much as saying, for example, let's say you put on a heritage celebration every year, right? Like you do. And
we have our 8th annual heritage celebration
it's coming up, and it's something that my family greatly enjoys. And let's just say somebody else maybe 30 miles away said, hey, I'm going to have one too for this. And so it's out of courtesy. Out of courtesy, we checked in and said, hey, what do you think about this idea? If it was going to create a lot of discord, we wouldn't have done it. But because they said, hey, we think that's a great idea, Alcatraz it's a huge event, it's a big ceremony, it's a ceremony, and not everyone can get there. And sometimes people, want to come from Salinas, want to come because they have a lot of little kids and it's a little tougher, and they said this is a great solution to some of that. So we're happy to serve in that role. It
can be a detriment getting there. I was just there in June, and there's a lot of climbing you have to do, and especially if you're in a wheelchair or you're a senior,
or you got a lot of little kids,
right? And a lot of little kids too. And where are they going to change them?
Right. So absolutely, we're in solidarity, and I think it also is a beautiful snapshot of what and who we are here in the South Bay, and how we come together as a community. For example, bringing in ACOMA, led by Keith Hames, and they bring in their African traditions. So when we talk about Indigenous cultures and resistance and struggle, we are taking a global perspective, which I think is very much an attitude or an aesthetic choice, if you will, here in the South Bay and in Silicon Valley.
Well, that sounds wonderful. Yeah. Is there anywhere, do you have a website, or is there any way someone can get more information?
Sure.
On your service?
Yeah. People can check out www.schoolofartsandculture.org, or certainly, give us a call. Give me a call at the school at 408-794-6250. Absolutely. And we'll put out a Facebook invite also for that event, and that can be shared widely.
Let's go back to the Mexican Heritage Plaza.
Sure.
And talk about the one of the things that I'm interested in is the Leadership Institute
right.
that you've initiated.
Yeah.
Could you talk about that program, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, the Leadership Institute predates the School of Arts and Culture, predates us coming into the Plaza. It's now in its 8th year. And actually 2 friends and colleagues of mine, Raul Lozano, who at the time when we founded the program was the executive director of Teatro Visión, and Roy Hirabayashi, who is co-founder and past executive director of San Jose Taiko. The 3 of us were executive directors of ethnic-specific arts organizations and being asked to serve at every task force committee. We need a person of color to come and be on this task force and this committee and what have you. I'm sure that you've experienced this. And we turned around one day and looked at each other and said, this has to stop. There's got to be more than 3 people of color involved in the arts in leadership positions. And we said, hey, we have to start something. Why don't we create a leadership program that we would want to go through, focused on people of color and focused on our assets, focused on our struggles, a year-long commitment, free of charge, giving people the tools needed to not only be at the table, but actually create policy, change, serve on boards, take leadership positions, and to create a pipeline of people of color who are identified not only by identified by their community, but other communities as leaders. So anyways, that program, like I said, is now it's in its 8th year. And Mali Class 8 is actually in the middle of getting ready for their public service project, which every class always has a service project. So we're talking about artists, volunteers, we're talking about entrepreneurs in the creative sector, and arts administrators. So the whole idea is this. It's not just about your work as an artist or an arts administrator or what have you, but it's also about service to the community. So it has a strong focus on service.
I know that I went to the community leadership group, and we had a focus. We had 1 week or 1 month we spent on arts.
Oh,
and,
really? Oh, okay.
And as a matter of fact, I think we went to the Makla
Yeah.
museum, and I think you used to work there.
Yes,
Is that correct?
yes, that's true. Yeah, I served as executive director of Makla for 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah,
okay.
and that's really where I cut my teeth. I give Makla a lot of credit for being a place that when they hired me, Craig, I was 28, 29, something like that, just a young whippersnapper. And they said, hey, you know, you can be the executive director. We give you this opportunity. I didn't even know what a profit and loss statement looked like. So I learned quickly at Makla, and they really invested in my leadership, and I give them a lot of credit. And that's where I also was able to co-found with Roy and Raul the program, the Multicultural Arts Leadership Institute, which subsequently followed with me and is now housed at the School of Arts and Culture. So yeah, these leadership development programs, as you know, often in our communities of color, we see these leadership programs are not free of charge, typically. So that can be a great barrier. So that's why the Mali program, the way we built it out and fund it and fundraise for it, is that it's always free. It is always free. It is competitive. You can apply in the fall. Every fall we have a competitive process. However, it is always free of charge.
And how many students go through that
Right,
in a typical year?
In a typical year, we'll have a cohort between 12 to 15 participants that are in the cohort.
Okay. Well, is there anything else that's going on that we need to know about?
Well, there's always stuff going on.
Okay.
Okay, so for those long-range planners, I'm going to put a date out in December. December 11th will be our Fiesta Navideña, and this is a final recital for our students. However, it's a fiesta, it's a party. You're invited, Craig.
Okay.
Okay, so I hope to see you there. Okay, I'll send you the invite. And this is an opportunity for us to come together during the holiday season, and we bring together vendors that are selling amazing handcrafted gifts, and also have the students on stage and their artwork on the walls. And it's really a celebration on the east side of our cultures, of our cultural experiences, our art, our children, and also of course, there are adults who are in classes as well. So it's a great opportunity to come together and to see the plaza lit up at night in December. It's just a really nice opportunity, and it's of course free of charge, and it's for the whole family.
So it's so close to Christmas. Are there opportunities to buy things?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. So we have vendor booths, and we also sell traditional food like pozole, Craig, you know what pozole is,
Yes.
right? Okay, all right. So we have pan dulce and chocolate, and really focusing in on the traditions. So you'll see Aztec dance, you'll see folkloric dance, and who knows? We always have some surprise guests.
So that's really long range.
Yep, it's a pretty long range planning, but let's see. We have, I failed to mention we have an entire Day of the Dead season. Can I talk a little bit about that?
Oh, yes.
Is that all right?
Yes,
Okay,
that's big.
So, as you know, Day of the Dead, it's not just a day, there's a whole season now. It's very popular, especially in the Southwest. And these are celebrations that start out, of course, with religious and cultural underpinnings. And at the Plaza, at the School of Arts and Culture, we're supporting a number of entities in how they present artistic and cultural representations and activities. So November 1st, on Sunday, November 1st, La Última Parada, the last stop. Because, when you die, that's it, last stop, right? So La Última Parada will be this festival. For some, well, that's true. We could come back. So La Última Parada, many times, a few times. And that will be a family-friendly event, and that's put on by actually a small group of artists. Rick Moreno, Maria Luisa Colmenares, and Chris Esparza are organizing this event. So look out for information about that on our website as well. And then how could I possibly forget the annual production of Macario that is presented by Teatro Visión. And this is an amazing theatrical production in our beautiful theater that you cannot miss. It's wonderful.
And when will Macario be?
So Macario will be the second and third weekend of October. Macario the theatrical production is based on a classic Mexican film from the golden era of film for Mexican cinema. And Macario is a universal story about hunger and poverty and how this family deals with this and these issues of inequity. And it's just amazing. And it has some themes that play really well into the Day of the Dead season.
Thank you very much, Tamara, for being our guest. Mozahuani Alvarado is our guest today. And this has been Native Voice Television. I'm your host, Crag Pasqua. And we'll see you next time.